Hello, everybody. My name's Paul Angone, and I love millennials. Are there any millennials in the room today? Can I hear a shout out? Millennials, come on. Is there any millennials in the room today? Where are you guys? There's got to be a few of you out there. Okay, how about maybe you're not a millennial, or you're a millennial by heart, but you like millennials, or I hear some cheers. That's good. I'm excited about that. Because usually, what we hear in the news, right? What do we hear? Entitled, narcissistic, self-absorbed, think they know and can be anything, right? These are usually the phrases that we hear constantly about millennials being thrown around on Huffington Post or New York Times, usually negative portraits of who millennials are. But actually, all those words that I listed out, entitled, narcissistic, self-absorbed, think they know and they can be anything, that actually, those words came from a 1970s essay called The Me Decade, describing some young 20-somethings that were boomers. And Tom Wolfe, the author, was describing this generation that was going to ruin everything. Does that sound familiar? And really, I think it's a rite of passage. At some point, you hit a certain age, and it's a rite of passage to talk about kids these days and how they're ruining everything, right? But really, that doesn't help the conversation, and it doesn't help us connect. And obviously, millennials, Gen X, baby boomers, silent generation, greatest generation, we all need each other. We all need each other. And that's really my passion as an author and a speaker. I've written 3 different books, mostly for 20-somethings. So I've written books, 101 Secrets for Your 20s and 101 Questions You Need to Ask in Your 20s. I've been connecting with millennials all over the world, and I've heard from thousands and millions of them. And really, my goal is to somewhat get away from even the millennial word in and of itself. Because actually, if you look at research, if you look at Pew Research studies, about 60% of millennials don't want to be called a millennial, or they don't relate to what a millennial means. So sometimes I think it does us a disservice in some respects to get tied into this idea of, oh, this is who a millennial is, or this is who Gen X is, or this is who a boomer is. Instead, I like to take, when I'm speaking to a room of leaders, I've had the privilege to go work with some great companies, and I get in a room of leaders and I say, you know what? Instead of thinking about this next generation as millennials, can you think as them as, 20-somethings or young adults? Think back to when you were in your 20s, when you were 22 or 23. Did you have it all figured out? Did you know what you were going to do with your life? Did you know who you were going to marry or where you were going to work? Psychologist Meg Jay called your 20s the defining decade of your life. And it truly is. And it's a really hard decade. I think you go into your 20s, think it's going to be exciting and glamorous when it's really not. It's really difficult. So that's why millennials, 20-somethings currently in early 30s, mid-30s, we really need this cross-mentorship, cross-collaboration, conversations with each other. We need each other. We need to learn from each other. And believe me, my generation, we have a lot to learn. We have a lot to learn. And there is so much change taking place right now. I think we all have something to learn about what does it mean to be successful now. How do we help the next generation rise up as leaders? We need leaders from all walks of life and from all ages talking together, working together. And I was kind of that typical millennial. I was the guy who at 23, I was looking to make a difference. And if not make a difference, at least make a good amount of money, right, when I graduated from college. And if I wasn't making a lot of money, at least be doing a job that I enjoyed. And if it wasn't a job I enjoyed, at least a job that sounded really cool, that I could brag about on social media, even if it wasn't that glamorous, but at least I could spin it to make it sound really amazing. That was kind of my vision for life after college. But then I quickly realized that, you don't exactly go change the world and make $1 million by the time you're 25, at least for most of us. It was a little bit of a lie. So I actually had an amazing lesson to learn, and I tell this story for the millennials in the room, for the 20-somethings, the 30-somethings, but for everybody, because it was a really important story for me. Is I was in this coffee shop, actually in Colorado. I was in Denver, Colorado. It was during Christmas time. And I was working on one of my books, and I was really struggling with this idea of, man, how do you find a job you really love? I want to do something I'm passionate about. I want to make a difference. I was asking all these big questions that I think my generation is asking. But as I'm asking these questions, I start to notice that there's this barista, this gentleman who's probably in his 30s, and he's making drinks, and he's talking to a lot of people. And I start to notice that as people get their drinks, and this is a crowded Christmas coffee shop. I mean, it is packed. But when people get their drinks, they're not leaving. So they're getting their drinks, and they're staying in the line where you usually get your drinks. And they all have their drinks, but they're all waiting there. And I'm like, what is going on? Why are all these people with their drinks, but they're not leaving? You know, it is so packed in here. Get out of here, everybody. You know, it was starting to make me nervous. I was feeling claustrophobic. But then I started to realize why all these people were waiting there with their drinks. Is they were all waiting to talk to the barista that was making the drinks. And as I listened to him and as he was talking to customers, you know, he was asking, hey, how's your son doing? Or how'd that soccer game go? Or how's your daughter? She got into college. Congratulations. And then the customers were telling him their life's problems. I mean, he was like the neighborhood psychologist under the guise of a Starbucks barista, right? And I'm like, what is this guy's story? And I see this guy take a break, and now I'm just watching this guy. I'm just focused on this guy, and he's walking around the store, and literally people are calling him across the store saying, hey, you gotta come meet my friend, or, oh, hey, do you know that cute guy over there? Do you think you can introduce us? I mean, he's like the matchmaker. This guy is like the mayor of Starbucks. I mean, he is the mayor. I'm starting to get nervous. I'm like, do I go introduce myself? Do I get an autograph? Like, what do I do? And as an author, I start thinking about, what is this guy's backstory? Who is this guy? You know, what is his story? You know, that's what authors want to know. What is the story? And so I start thinking to myself, you know, maybe this guy, you know, maybe he was in real estate and he lost everything when the economy dipped. Yeah, and maybe he lost so much he had to move back in with his parents in his 30s, which of course is everybody's dream, right? So he's back with his parents. He had to get a job at Starbucks because that was the only job he could get. And I see the guy start to limp a little bit, and I'm like, and the guy has one leg, and he's working at Starbucks, and he's doing this amazing job. You know, I start to make kind of this hallmark character. But in actuality, I've fibbed the truth a little bit on this story. And I tell the whole story in my 101 Secrets for Your 20s book. But this gentleman that I'm just describing, the mayor of Starbucks, I actually know, I know his backstory very well because he is my brother. So he's my brother, my flesh and blood, my one and only brother. And I had never seen him working at Starbucks before. I had known him when he was selling real estate. I knew him when he was driving the nice cars. I did not know him yet working at that Starbucks. And it was such a convicting time for me as the big thinker, big dreamer, big visionary, I want to go change the world, to watch my brother doing such an amazing job with also one leg. He literally has born without a leg. So to be on your feet at 4 a.m. All day making drinks, I think for most people that would be a pretty miserable experience. And so I asked him, I said, Chad, how do you do it? How do you do it? How do you make such an impact every day? And he's like, Paul, I had to make a very intentional decision right when I started this job that even if I didn't feel like this was the perfect job, the dream job, the right job for me, I was going to bring my right self. I was going to bring the best of who I can be to this job. And I was going to make an impact serving people drinks. And I saw that firsthand. So for all of us out there, but especially the younger generation, you know, I think it's awesome that we have big dreams, big goals. But I quickly realized that success in your 20s and your 30s, it's more about setting the table than it is about enjoying the feast. And that really, it's about dreaming big, sure, but being really faithful and resilient in the small. About planting those seeds in the ground and watering them. You know, I tell millennials all the time, I say pursuing a dream, making a difference, it's like planting an avocado seed. It's going to take about 10 years before you see any fruit. And as leaders out here, and I believe all of us here are leaders, you have the opportunity and privilege to teach this generation these truths, these life's truths about humility and perseverance, and what does it actually take to make a difference. And millennials, they want to know the formula for finding their passion and for finding their purpose. And when they ask me that question, and I write this in my books, I say it's a pretty easy formula to find your passion. Do something and completely fail at it. I mean, just fail miserably, fail publicly, embarrass yourself, nothing goes as planned. But then the next day, you want to do it again. You want to keep plugging away at it. It's something important to you. It's something you cannot not do. And I think we need more and more people like that who are using our unique gifts and abilities, using what I describe in my books as your signature sauce. Your signature sauce, that flavor that only you bring with these different ingredients. And it's like you're this master chef in the kitchen and you're putting these ingredients together. And a lot of those experiments go up in flames, but you keep trying and you keep bringing those mix of your strengths and your story and your values. And you're bringing that flavor to the world. And we need more of that, especially in today's age. We need more people who are giving the world this flavor that they're desperate for, that is their signature sauce, that is their gift to the world. And so as leaders, and I want to leave with this last story, and this is really for the leaders in the room, it was a story that I did not see coming. It was a story I wish didn't happen in a sense, but I was in a condo in San Diego where I was living at the time, and I was there with my wife, and my two children were in bed, and they were asleep. And we were watching Netflix, my wife and I, as a good millennial does, we were watching some Netflix show. And we heard a commotion going on outside, some loud noises. We lived in a very quiet community, so this was strange to hear so much ruckus. And we go out, and I go on my second-story balcony, and I look up to the third-story balcony, which is probably 40 feet, 50 feet in the air, maybe more. And I see my neighbor, who I had known at cursory level. We'd said hi to each other. But now I see him, and he's standing on the edge of his balcony, up on a ledge, which is about the width of a balance beam, and he's threatening to jump. And that commenced about the next 4 hours of my life as the police blocked off the whole area. But for some reason, they let me stay on that balcony. And I didn't know what to do. I mean, what do you do in a time like that? Do I go back inside and just pretend that nothing is happening? Do I go back to that Netflix show when somebody might jump down to their death? That didn't feel right. But then also, do I stay on this balcony? Do I try to say something to him? Do I try to talk him down? What if I say the wrong thing? I didn't know what to do. But I had this feeling that I should just be there. I should just stay there on that balcony. And if he wanted to talk to somebody else that wasn't a police officer, I was going to be there to give him that opportunity. But I was scared. I was freaked out. I was so nervous. And I didn't want him to talk to me because I didn't know what I was going to say. But I stayed there for 4 hours, and I just stood there, and I watched the range of emotions as the police officers were trying to talk him down. I watched that experience, and it was a very intense experience. But finally, he looked down to me, and he started talking to me, and it was my moment. And he's on the edge, and he is tense, and he is raging, and I've seen him go through all these emotions, and he starts talking to me. And I don't know what to say. I still don't have any preconceived thing in my mind, but the only words that I can get out are, I care about you. I care about you, and I don't want to see you do this. I care about you. And to see those words meet him and to watch his body just de-escalate, to watch the calm go over his body. Now, I'm not going to say that I was the reason why he did not jump, that he stepped off. The police officers there that day did an amazing, heroic job working with this gentleman. But it was such a stark reminder for me, and a metaphor, I think, for leadership and for all of us, is sometimes you're on that balcony, you're talking to people who are on the edge, so to speak, and you might not know what to say. But who in your life right now needs to hear those words? Who needs to hear, I care about you? Maybe you've had problems in the past. Maybe it's a millennial employee that you've struggled with. Maybe it's your spouse. Maybe it's your daughter or son. Who needs to hear in your life, I care about you? Because no matter what generation we are, no matter how old or young we are, those words will never get old. Thank you so much.